You know what I've been thinking lately? There is a video I would like to make to discuss something that I've just found out recently. Let me see if I can find it. Do you guys know what Alice in Wonderland Syndrome is? Because I didn't up to very recently, and only now I found out that I actually had that condition, that syndrome, when I was a child. And so I thought, I'd like to make a video about it because I think there are plenty of people. It's kind of rare, I think. We're going to read it now. We're going to look for it, see how rare it is, the diagnosis. But it is something that I think statistically, someone watching now may have experienced. I stopped having it. I only had it as a child for some time. But it is something that is more common, and I had no idea that other people had this experience that I'm going to tell you about. And it's a fascinating thing, and I wanted to speak about it because I think if it helped me to find a random creator talking about it, I'm like, man, I had the same thing. I didn't know it was a thing. I thought it was just me. And I kind of want to do that too. So let me show you. In Wonderland Syndrome. It's basically an alteration in the perception of reality. It functions in different ways, and not everyone experiences the same way. So I'll tell you how it was for me. Let me show you. So here it is. So let's have a look at the AI review first, and I'll tell you if it's kind of correct, and then we'll look into actual descriptions. So Alice in Wonderland Syndrome, also known as Todd syndrome, is a rare neurological condition that causes temporary distortions in how a person perceives their body and the world around them. These distortions can include seeing things as larger or smaller than they are, experiencing changes in body size, or having a distorted sense of time. So the one I had, that I absolutely did have, is the latter. The distorted sense of time. And I'll tell you how it was, because to me, apart from the fact that reading this stuff, and people still don't know why it happens, by the way, could be something electrical in the brain that happens as you're growing up. It is more typical of children, although some adults do bring it with them, and I think we have one in the comments section right now. But yeah, as a child, I didn't see my body larger or smaller, which is where it takes its name, but it was absolutely the distorted sense of time did happen. So I'll give you all the details. Let's read a little more. Alice in Wonderland Syndrome is a neurological disorder that affects how the brain processes sensory information, particularly visual and somatosensory information. It can be triggered by various factors, including migraines, epilepsy, infections, and brain injuries. This, I have to say, from the AI is still, it's not exact, because it makes it like a categorical statement, whereas they are still trying to figure out what causes it. It's still something that you're not sure. And then while it's a rare condition, it's estimated that a small percentage of the population may experience symptoms of Alice in Wonderland Syndrome at some point in their lives. And that's why I want to talk about it. That's why I want to talk about it. Because to me, I absolutely had it. It happened to me maybe for a few years, maybe 2 or 3 years between, if my memory is correct, I would say between age 9 to 11, and then it stopped. Something like that. But it did happen a lot, and it happened mostly at night and mostly when I was laying down, just to give you an idea. So I'll tell you how it was. So let me tell you how it worked for me. And then we get back to this and we read more about it. But here is how it happened to me, so maybe you can relate to that. So when I was a child and I would get in bed, it was night, what happened is that all of a sudden, as I was trying to sleep, maybe still with my eyes open, two things would happen. Either time would feel accelerated, as if like a fast forward, but like it was for VHS. So everything around me looked like it was super fast. Instead, I was moving. If I tried to move my hand, it would look like this. So a distortion in the perception of time. But everything around felt like it was so fast it would make my head spin. So mine was time related. This is one way. Another way is that sometimes it would feel opposite, and it's like I was underwater. So everything was like super slow around me, like I was experiencing reality in slow motion. But if I tried to move, I would feel like everything was so fast. And both occasions would give me a feeling of sickness and would make me feel dizzy. And I'll be honest with you, a couple of times I actually got scared because I was a child and I had no idea what the heck was happening. But I didn't know how to express it to my parents, because what are you going to say? And even the way I'm describing it now, of course, it's not the same as I would have described it as a child. Basically bullet time, yeah, as one of the ideas. And yes, it was also auditory. So if there were sounds, they sounded sped up. So the way I experienced it was mostly with the perception of the passing of time and how things would move around me. This is how it was for me. And it happened for a while. It was basically like, okay, that's how. And I thought either it happened only to me, or sometimes I thought, well, maybe everyone experiences this, because as a child, you have no idea. And then as a teenager, it stopped. And so I just forgot about it completely until I started watching. I just ran into a YouTuber by chance that was experiencing it. And I'm like, wait, I had the same thing. And then I went into this rabbit hole. Yeah, it's completely gone now. So I haven't had this problem for like 30 years, in fact. It's gone completely. I never had it ever again. But it's crazy because I remember it as if it was yesterday. So it did leave a mark into my memories. If any of you had this, please tell us about it and I'll read your description. Keenan says, and I love reading this, it happens to me when I have a slight fever or get too hot. The room grows and shrinks around me. Fantastic. So what Keenan is describing here, or Keenan is describing for us here today, I appreciate that you're here, by the way, while we're doing this. If anyone else had this experience, do tell me, because it's nice. I've never spoken to anyone else who had these kind of experiences. So the one that Keenan has experienced is the one that is visual in nature. And that's why they call it like this, by the way, because when you think of Alice in Wonderland, she's massive and everything is small, and then sometimes she becomes very little and now every object is huge. So that's one of these versions. Now, Wikipedia, Kaladin also had it. Mine was during a hot summer. So I see a few of you are connecting it to heat. I wonder if I was hot in it. Now I don't know, but it would have been interesting to know if it happened to me in summer mostly. Who knows? I don't know, actually. Same for you, Pastramic. Well, there you go. That's why I'm making this video. Like, I'm talking about it now, and I'll probably post it as a video. There we go. Look, Francisco Funari says, I maybe had this. What WTF? How didn't I know about it? I didn't know about it. I found out, maybe it was like very recently. I found out about this, and then another thing that I had was lucid dreaming. That's another thing that I found out later, and I was like, what, you mean you don't know you're dreaming while you're dreaming? Like, that's something that happened to me a lot. In fact, I practiced a lot of my language learning in my lucid dreaming, I'll be honest. But yeah, it's that's another thing that I thought everyone had, and then I found out, no, a lot of people don't know they're dreaming, and there are even people that don't dream at all. I'm like, really? So like, I dream every night. Every night I dream, and sometimes, not all the dreams, but some dreams I'm lucid. But today I don't really want to talk about lucid dreaming. I mostly want to talk about this. All right, let's have a look at the Wikipedia article, because I thought it was pretty good. For once. Yeah, you see, the cause is currently unknown. This is the last time I checked, because I looked into it. I literally went down the rabbit hole, and today we are going down the rabbit hole, let me tell you that much. Is there a sensational version of it? Yes, Javin. When I was a child, I often felt like my bed was moving and spinning while I was trying to sleep. That's exactly it. Never had it explained to me. This is what it is. So let's get back to it, and let's see what else we can learn, and see if any of you had any experience that is more on the visual hallucinatory aspect of it. Because my visual thing was only that things moved fast, but I didn't see things getting larger. But it's gonna get crazy. It's gonna get crazy. Classification, it says it's not universally agreed upon in literature. However, some authors distinguish true Alice in Wonderland syndrome based solely on symptoms related to alteration in a person's body image. Okay, so not the one I have. In contrast, they utilize the term Alice in Wonderland-like syndrome to encompass symptoms associated with changes in perception of vision, time, hearing, touch, and other external perceptions. So basically, it still hasn't been classified, but definitely mine would have been the second. Mine would have been the latter, because I never seen stuff getting bigger and smaller. Still fascinating though. So with over 60 associated symptoms, Alice in Wonderland Syndrome affects the sense of vision, sensation, touch, and hearing, as well as the perception of one's body image. Migraines, nausea, dizziness. Yeah, you see? Dizziness. That's what I mean. Like, do remember that, like, I knew all of these things, and then I started reading this, and I'm like, oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I did feel dizzy. And agitation, occasionally. I did tell you just now that I was scared a couple of times. Also commonly associated symptoms with Alice in Wonderland Syndrome. Less frequent symptoms also include loss of limb control, never happened, coordination, memory loss, no. Lingering touch and sound sensations. Maybe, but it says lingering, so no. Emotional instability, no. And it says Alice in Wonderland Syndrome is often associated with distortion of sensory perception, which involves visual, somatosensory, probably the one that, yeah, and non-visual symptoms. So let's have a look at the visual distortion, because I think these are the craziest ones, even though it's not the one I had. It does say that some people that use some versions of psychedelic drugs can experience similar symptoms to this. So imagine that your body's actually doing it on its own, and we don't know why. Visual distortions. Individuals with AIWS can experience illusions of expansion, reduction, or distortion of their body image, such as microsomatognosia, feeling that their own body or body parts are shrinking, or macrosomatognosia, feeling that their body or body parts are growing taller or larger. If any of you, these changes in perception are collectively known as whatever, or Lilliputian hallucinations, which refer to objects appearing either smaller or larger than reality. People with certain neurological diseases may also experience similar visual hallucinations. We'll see if there is a video that actually shows how this could feel like, because I think people did make it. Like a video that approximates how it may feel like for people that experience the visual hallucinatory version of this disorder. That's funny, DJ. Within the category of Lilliputian hallucinations, people may experience either it's an abnormal visual condition usually occurring in the context of visual hallucination, in which the affected person sees objects as being smaller than they are in reality. And then, of course, everything it says is larger in the opposite version. It's fascinating, really. It's fascinating. So Kaladin shares with us, I shrank, big sugar cubes and teacups with supergiant people around talking in low-frequency sounds, followed with shortness of breath. Man, that's fascinating. Do you still have that, or is it something that is gone? Like it's something you only had as a child? Yeah. So, let's see the depersonalization and derealization version. Alongside with size, mass, and shape, distortions of the body, those with Alice in Wonderland Syndrome often experience as feeling of disconnection from one's own body, feelings, thoughts, and environment, known as depersonalization, derealization disorder. Depersonalization is a term specifically used to express a true detachment from the personal self and identity. It is described as being unobserved. Oh, I see. So kind of like I see. Yeah, never heard that, no. There we go. Here it is. Hearing and time distortions. This is mine, so let's have a look. Individuals experiencing Alice in Wonderland Syndrome can also often experience paranoia, I didn't have that, as a result of disturbances in sound perception. These disturbances can include the amplification of soft sounds, yes, or the misinterpretation of common sounds. No, I didn't have that, but I can see how that could be really scary. Like you hear a sound and it sounds like something else in a context where that wouldn't. Oh my gosh, that's like nightmare fuel. Nightmare fuel. Other auditory changes include distortion in pitch and tone and hearing indistinguishable and strange voices, noises, or music. Luckily, I didn't have that. A person affected with AIWS may also lose a sense of time, a problem similar to the lack of spatial perceptive brought on by visual distortion. This condition is known as tachysensia. I don't know if I'm mispronouncing that. But look, for those with tachysensia, time may seem to pass very slowly, similar to an LSD experience. I never had an LSD experience, but the time's passing slowly. Absolutely. And the lack of time and space perspective can also lead to a distorted sense of velocity. Boom, it's right there. Like when I read this, it was such a moment of clarity that I'm like, oh my gosh, that happened to me for years. And I had no idea. And they do say that this Alice in Wonderland disorder, syndrome, I don't know if it's a disorder, it often is not, what's the word, diagnosed, because people that have it don't even know. And so they don't talk to the doctor. So to me, this is important to make a video about it, because if you have a child who experiences this, then it's good that you can talk to them about it. And then just to finish it up, for example, an object could be moving extremely slowly in reality, but to a person experiencing time distortions, it could seem that the object was sprinting uncontrollably along a moving walkway, leading to a severe, overwhelming disorientation. To a dot. Exactly this. Exactly this. Having symptoms of tachysensia is correlated with various underlying conditions, including substance use, not my case, migraine, I did have headaches a lot and migraines as a child, epilepsy, no, head trauma, no, and encephalitis, no. Regardless of an individual's disease diagnosis, tachysensia is often, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, is often included as a symptom associated with Alice in Wonderland Syndrome, since it is classified as a perceptual distortion. Therefore, a person can be described as having Alice in Wonderland Syndrome, even if that person is experiencing tachysensia due to an underlying condition. And here we are, guys. It doesn't mention vertigo, but I guess if you experience vertigo together with this stuff or the visual hallucination, then I would imagine, yes, it would be part of that. Yeah. So let's see. So look, there are creators that talk about it, and I ran into one of these. I don't remember if it was this girl, maybe, or it was someone else, but yeah, there are creators that speak about it on YouTube. And I wish they would get some good views, because I think it would help. How about we watch a little bit of one, just a little bit. For instance, let me see. I remember, like, how long is it? 7 minutes. We can watch a little bit of this one. And it's a vlog. As you see, it's and I remember, like, in a vloggy way. I think it's a good way to speak about it, right? Our brains are supercomputers, man. Brains are fascinating. Let's see what she has to say about it.
Hey everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I've recently opened up about having Alice in Wonderland Syndrome, and since then, you guys have been asking me tons of questions about my condition. So after some consideration, I've decided to do a Q&A on Instagram, and here I am going to be answering your questions. So let's get started.
So she still has it to this day.
For those of you who don't know what Alice in Wonderland Syndrome is, it's a rare neurological disorder characterized by distortion of perception.
Yeah.
Why is it called Alice in Wonderland Syndrome, right? Like, that's quite a funny name. Is it related to the book Alice in Wonderland? Dr. John Todd is the psychiatrist who discovered and named this disorder. He named it after Alice in Lewis Carroll's book Through the Looking Glass, because the misperceptions that the individuals experience resemble to what happened to Alice in Wonderland in...
I wonder if that inspired in a way the author. Who knows?
...that book, hence its name. When did you realize that you had Alice in Wonderland Syndrome? There was something unusual happening to me. I was in grade 1 at the time, and I remember my teacher, she was getting bigger in my eyes.
Gosh.
And I told her that, and I believe she took it the wrong way and ended up giving me a timeout.
That's why teachers like that should not be teachers. Like, how could you do that? Like, if a child tells you that, you have to investigate it. It's ridiculous.
Instances like this kept happening to me over time.
Right.
And I also remember getting abnormal headaches and migraines as a child.
You see, just like what I said. And I didn't even remember she said this. I watched this maybe. I think I remember watching this but a while ago. Not a while ago, a few months ago though, because it is still a recent discovery even for me. That's crazy.
I wondered if it was normal for someone my age to have this many migraines.
Right.
And the doctor told me that the mean age of Alice in Wonderland Syndrome onset was 8.5 years old.
Really?
What are the symptoms of Alice in Wonderland Syndrome?
Right.
I filmed myself walking around school to show you what I would experience.
It is.
As you can see, the garbage got bigger. This is one type of distortion that affects me and my behavior throughout the day. To be quite frank, it impedes my social interactions with numerous individuals. Many of the symptoms that we experience include the inability or strongly diminished ability to perceive color. The next one is lines and contours appearing to be wavy. And the most common of these symptoms is distortion of seeing things smaller or larger than they normally are. What all these symptoms have in common is that they constitute distortions of sensory perception rather than hallucinations or illusions. Hallucinations are sensations that appear to be real but are created within the mind, while illusions have a source in the outside world that is oftentimes misperceived or misinterpreted by the brain.
I think she did a really good job, by the way she's explaining it.
Distortions are based on sensory impressions, but include specific changes in highly specific aspects of the sensory input picture. So the video I just showcased is an example of a sensory distortion. Now, I am fortunate in a sense that I do not experience these symptoms every day, because the duration of symptoms tend to vary.
Same, I didn't experience that thing every day, mostly at night.
From some individuals experiencing symptoms that perceived for like a few minutes, but others have symptoms that persist for days. How many reported cases are there since it's considered so rare, right? Unfortunately, the prevalence of Alice in Wonderland syndrome is unknown. So personally, I do not know how many individuals in the world are affected by this disorder. One of the reasons is that there are not many studies that are conducted on a large scale for this, and the diagnostic criteria lacks consensus amongst the medical community. Major classifications such as the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders does not list AIWS as a diagnostic criteria, whereas the International Classification of Diseases and the American Psychiatric Association does pay attention to it. Alright, moving on to the next question. How is Alice in Wonderland syndrome diagnosed? When I was 8, I was officially diagnosed with the condition.
So she was diagnosed with the condition. Yeah, the editing is pretty good. She was diagnosed with the condition, so that's a difference for me. I just figured out in my freaking 40s that this thing exists, which is why I wanted to talk about it here on the channel. Yeah. Samuel says, I wonder if the visual issues could have something to do with the optic nerve. I mean, it's a good idea, but she says it's mostly interpretation. So maybe it's the brain, it's either the signal goes through your eyes correctly, and then the brain misinterprets it, or there is a problem with the collection of the signal. Who knows? No problem, Lady Jennifer. Thank you so much for being here. God bless you.
The differential diagnosis of Alice in Wonderland syndrome and its individual symptoms is complex. It can be easily misdiagnosed. Not only do the symptoms need to be differentiated from other positive disorders of perception, such as, like I mentioned, hallucinations and illusions, but a variety of conditions such as brain lesions and various fevers need to be established and ruled out. Out of 166 patients, 22.9% of these individuals suffered from infectious diseases.
22.9 is pretty high, but still it also means that there is a 78% that didn't, 77.1% that didn't, so there's that. Craig says, the visual cortex of the brain is massive and can vary in size depending on your environment, so there's much that could go wrong, wonky, I guess. You're right, yeah, maybe. I'd like to know more about this. Yeah, young Metatron was delusional. Yeah, a little bit. I guess.
Before being diagnosed with AIWS, and 21.7% of those individuals were less than 18 years of age. So because of this finding, my doctor suggested I get an MRI to see if there were infectious diseases that could be responsible.
Yeah, and of course it wasn't a case of infectious diseases. Okay, let's see if she speaks about the time one.
Syndromes. Furthermore, AIWS is characterized by perceptual disorders rather than hallucinations and illusions, as I mentioned earlier. Therefore, this needs to be distinguished from schizophrenia spectrum and other psychotic disorders. So this may lead you guys to wonder, are there any treatments for AIWS? And this is a great question, but there currently is no specific treatment. Doctors will give
awareness, it's already a step in a good direction, I think. Awareness. Yeah, very cool. But yeah, it was to me it was fascinating.